Hey, Mom, how's it going?
I'm having a good day, Lindsay. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I just realized completely forgot to pull you up a trivia question to kick us off today. Do you have any off the top of your head that you want to lead us in with? Completely putting you on the spot. Did not even tell her that I was going to do that.
So we want a trivia question about, right? So what would you guys think is a challenge when an agency has producer-owned books? Like, how does that impact the value of an agency? Is it I have to give you the answers too. My goodness, Lindsay, you're making this very difficult. So,
You could do an open ended
what's the
one.
impact if there's a producer owned book of business? Does it automatically decrease the value of an agency? Does it slow down the process? Or does it strengthen the agency because they get an amazing producer? Or A and B?
Personally, I'm going to go with A and B because I don't think having producer owned books is a positive thing because the agency doesn't own it anymore.
Yeah. What do you think, Carl?
Yeah, I agree. It's A and B.
Yeah. I mean, I made it easy for you because I couldn't think
You
of a
did.
fourth one. How bad is
You
that?
did.
But I'll tell you, it's something that I actually hit, like I was working on before we got on this podcast. And when there is a producer owned book of business, it's funny when you're working in your business, you don't think about it much. But when you think about exiting, it starts to become this thing you really got to pay attention to. And unfortunately, if you haven't dealt with it and you're ready to exit, it can definitely slow it down. It can definitely create complexity. And for the buyer, they don't want to negotiate with multiple people. They want to negotiate with you. And it can absolutely weaken your book of business because depending on how large the book is, it changes your concentration, it changes your risk, it changes a lot of things. So if you have a producer owned book of business, think about it far in advance of ever wanting to exit. Think about a different structure that would strengthen it and be a win 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 for everyone, is my advice to the world. How about that? So,
Yeah.
anyway,
Thanks for doing that on
whew,
the spot for us. Appreciate that.
That's well
yeah.
done.
Well, I'm
As
super
we were,
excited. We have a really fun guest today. We got to meet through IANC, which I'm very fortunate to get to call you my friend. But Mr. Karl Sherrill is with us on the podcast today. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so excited to be with you guys this morning.
Yeah. So if someone doesn't know you, which I can't imagine, and if they don't, you definitely need to reach out and get to know Karl because he's amazing. Tell us a little bit about how insurance chose you. I'm going to put it that way because most people did not
hmm,
choose insurance. Tell me how that happened in your world.
Yeah, that applies 100% to how I ended up in this space. So I grew up in Hickory, North Carolina, working in a second generation in textile mills. Went to school at NC State and have an undergraduate and a graduate degree in textile management. And so running textile operations is what I planned to do my whole life. In the early 90s, when I graduated from state, there was a lot of things changing in the marketplace around the textile industry. NAFTA, for example, was really coming into play. And so the industry was changing and shifting. And I look back at my resume, and from 15 years old all the way until the day that I decided to do something different, I had a great resume for finding a spot to land in that industry. The sad thing was that industry was shrinking, and or the opportunities were not here in the United States. It was overseas. And so those weren't things I was interested in doing. And so went back to school and was working on my MBA at Elon University as a way to find a path maybe out of that industry. The second day of class in the 3-year program, I met Danielle Hoverson, who was at the time the CFO of Sendon Insurance, a private agency in the Carolinas. And we became instant friends. We got along immediately. She said, "You got to come meet our agency people. You got to join the agency. You got to look at what we're doing. I want to introduce you to the agency." And I was like, "You got to be kidding me. I don't have anything to do with insurance. I don't know it. I don't want to know it. I don't even have a good my connotation of it's not good. Like, I'm just not interested, but you're great. So let's be friends." And so we were, and we stayed close that whole time through the program. By the end of the program, I took her up on the offer to come meet the team there at that agency. And as many of the stories go, once you realize what is out there in the really, what I call kind of the top 20% of agencies in the world, it's not what you think it is. And so insurance found me that way, and I found insurance that way. And my only regret was that I didn't take her up on the invitation 3 years earlier when she first asked, because it's been an
Yeah.
incredible place to land. My network of people and my circles of influence are so impactful in my personal and professional life. And it's all related to being a part of this great industry.
It's so funny, Carl. My sister Morgan has been looking for a job and trying to figure out, what do I want to do with my life? And she the other day was telling us, well, none of you do anything related to your college degree. And I was just thinking back on that conversation when you're like, I got a degree in textile management.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think insurance is a place where a lot of people find that catch. There's very few people who are in the industry who actually got a degree in insurance. There's actually very few colleges that offer a degree. And you really, working with a bunch of agencies over the last couple years, you don't really have to be that great at sales or, business management to have a great agency and have a great,
Mm-hmm.
Make a lot of money in this industry, which is
Right.
really interesting.
Yeah.
But that's
It's a very
something.
interesting challenge too, right? Because if you can be average and produce above average results and have a really above average lifestyle, which is the case in our business, the danger there is to be average.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a challenge in our industry. And so
I should have I should have used this as my survey question, but I'm going to add it now because you just said that and it made me think of it, Carl. So there are 39,000 independent insurance agencies in the country. What percentage do you think get stuck in 50,000 in revenue that can't get above it? And honestly, that's the tipping point where the lifestyle that insurance creates sometimes keeps you from having to push beyond it, and therefore they stay there. Maybe we'll put it at 750 to a million. What percentage of agencies fall below that?
I was going to say 80-20 rule, but I think it's probably a little higher. I'm going to guess 90.
Okay, what do you think, Linz?
I'm going to say 85%. I got to go a little bit lower than Carl, I think.
I should have used this question. Oh my goodness. It is 83%, guys. 83%
Wow.
of agencies are under that. It's right around a million. So I don't know the exact for 750, but to your point, you can be very successful and create a very nice lifestyle in this industry. But for those people that want to push and do better, you got to invest differently. You've got to run their business differently. You got to create a sales environment. You got to do all these things, which honestly, Carl, you come to mind because I think that's where you're passionate, right? So tell us about what you're doing today in order to help people to excel in this industry. Tell us what that looks like.
It's I had a great opportunity with the agencies that I've worked at. The private agency later was a part of MMA, and now with this incredible group that I'm with at High Street, to be around some real thought leaders in the space, thought leaders who really challenge the way that you think about the traditional world of insurance and specifically sales. Like that's really my passion. And there's a lot of theory out there. There's a lot of assumed things about success in sales. And I'm kind of a little bit of a contrarian. I like to challenge a little bit of some of that traditional thought. Because traditional thought, I think, gets you to kind of that average we've been talking about. And let me stop and say, like, if that's a lifestyle that brings you happiness and being average, then great. Be in that 83%. I'm not being prescriptive to how you should do things in your life, but if there is such an opportunity to take that next step in our business, and that passion is what I'm trying to help people understand, is that if you have a desire to do something else than what you're doing today, there's a path for that. And being in this industry and being in a professional sales position in this industry, it's really, really unique. Most other industries, and I've been in other industries selling, there's going to be a cap at some point to your potential. And so that cap in our business, most of the time, is only related to how hard you're willing to work. It is kind of an unlimited potential. And so what I've been working with our group is really helping our agency partners that have come alongside of us and partnered with us at High Street to say, hey, let's look at what you've been doing and let's see what that next step could look like. And for those agency partners who that next step is exciting for them and something they want to do, then our team wants to come alongside of you and try to enable and empower you to go do that. I can't make you do it. I can't make it happen for you, but I can come alongside and say, hey, let me challenge, let's talk about it. Let's think through what you're doing. Let me share with you how I view the world, how our team views the world at High Street. And if that's exciting for you, let's talk about what that could look like.
So, Carl, I would agree with you. I think there is no cap in this industry. And you said if you work hard enough, it's limitless. But I think I'd add a little bit more to that. If you're willing to see things from many different perspectives and be creative and not get mired in things, I think that also is a key point, because you can work really hard, but keep doing the same thing that's not working and not get anywhere. While society is changing, while the industry is changing, if you're able to be creative and see the opportunity rather than the roadblocks, those are the people that figure this out. So that's the only thing I would add. And I don't know how you
Yeah, it's
feel
fair.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think for us, what we want to do in the world that we operate in as a group that's bringing agencies together in strategic partnerships, we're really brutally honest with every agency that we talk to. We owe it to them. We owe it to ourselves. We owe it to the team behind us. And we tell people, hey, listen, here's this. You don't have to agree with it. You don't have to like it. And we can be at odds about this, but this is how we view it. This is how I view it as a leader. This is how our team looks at it. This is how we approach this, whatever that topic is about running an agency and being successful. And if you like that, then let's do it. If you don't, it's okay. There's plenty of other people out there that run great organizations that you can partner with that do it differently than us. And I'd be the first one to help you find a really good partner that does it the way you want to do it. But working hard is not just it, right? Because I know a lot of people that work hard, and being really busy is not really sometimes working hard.
Amen. Yeah. Amen.
True. So, Carl, one of the things we were talking about a little bit before the show is that you're working with producers on sales training. And one of the things that I have come across in my time in insurance is that salespeople in insurance don't even necessarily really act like actual salespeople sometimes. Like it's insurance is something that everyone needs. It's a necessity. So it's not necessarily like a hard sell until you're getting into those like really, large accounts or even like higher middle market. Can you walk me through what that process looks like for you guys at High Street?
Yeah, I think we're trying to be a little more prescriptive around training. There's a lot of good training facilitators, programs, things we could do internally that would cover 80% of what needs to be said about how to be better at selling insurance. But that gets back to one of my favorite quotes from Sun Tzu, which is, strategy without tactics is a slow road right to victory. Tactics without strategy is noise before defeat. You have to have both. And if they're not lined correctly, tactics without strategy, you do a lot of work, you do a lot of training, but are you really getting anywhere? If you have strategy that overlays it and then you apply the right tactics underneath, you can now train in a way that gives a producer an opportunity to be successful. Again, I can't make them be successful, but I can give them opportunities to be better at their success. And so what we've spent some time doing is trying to understand really who's on our team, and then what is the exact need that our team needs, and then let's go find and facilitate training for those potential needs, right? So we do testing of our team, and we use that profile testing to go through and identify I get it that most people don't do this really well in the sales world, but what about my folks? Like for our specific team, which I believe is a unique team for us at High Street, how do we figure out where that opportunity lays across that team? And then let's just grab a couple of those specific pieces and do training targeted at that. So that's kind of our overall view. I think testing is a really, really important piece of the puzzle. And, we have a test that we use that we picked. We think it's unique for us because not a lot of people are using it. And so, but any profile testing can give you the information you need to make a better decision about developing your people.
So, Carl, tell me about the transitions. We just talked about there's a lot of agencies that might come to you and they're ready to get to the next level. But for whatever reason, maybe it's their size, maybe they've been the one key salesperson with maybe one other person. So creating a real sales strategy and a real sales culture is tough when you're a 5-person agency and there's only 2 people that are selling or something like that.
Sure.
Tell me what the transition of joining an organization like High Street, coming into this environment, what is that like? To move from, I make all my decisions, now I'm part of High Street, and there's these wealth of opportunities, but it's also very different than what I've come from. Tell me how that looks and how you all manage that.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic, right? When you're bringing a team
Yeah.
together, and for us, the groups that are joining us have a long history in their community. They have a long history within their organization. Usually, it's a family related, multi generational, and so as they join, we don't want to be prescriptive, but if we need to, we will. And I say to most of our agencies, your autonomy is directly related to your performance, which, oh, by the way, is exactly the same as it was before, right? Performance always drives your flexibility and your ability to do whatever you want. But when you join a bigger team, that autonomy, you have an obligation to the greater good of the organization now to perform. And as leaders, protecting that, being stewards of that for all of our partners, we have an obligation to make sure that you are performing and hold you accountable to that. And so as an agency joins, we talk specifically about what do you think the challenges are going to be for you to continue to grow? And then hopefully we're going to be able to find ways that your partnership with us will help fill that gap and give you that opportunity. The other piece of the puzzle is that, when you build an agency with one person, you probably don't have a Monday morning sales meeting every week to talk about pipeline and to set accountability goals and look at activity because you've got one or two salespeople on the team, right?
Yeah, you might be talking to yourself. Like, that
Yeah,
would be
right. You're in there
crazy,
by
right?
yourself, right? And I can't even
Sit
hold
down, time to
myself
reflect.
accountable. Yeah, I've got to have somebody sit across the table for me. So if I did that for myself, I wouldn't get anywhere. And so
Right.
I think to me, that's where we really have to work with to say, we get it. We get it where you've been. If you're ready to go to that next place, which really we try to diligence that ahead of time. We want agencies that are joining us because they want to continue to go forward. And so we kind of have that talk pretty early about what's that going to look like and how can we help you do that if you'll come alongside of us in that partnership.
I think it's important to set expectations on that. I get to talk to a lot of agencies that sometimes regret the decisions that they made because they didn't spend the time to understand what is this going to look like? What is that? And listen, we're in a marketplace today that selling looks really attractive. And if you're looking on paper and you're spreadsheeting it and you're not thinking about the experience and what you're willing to change and what you're willing to do, the spreadsheet now becomes irrelevant. And it's really about culture and it's about fitting in and making sure that you are true to what you're willing to do. And you're also really thinking about that because this industry is filled with a bunch of unbelievable entrepreneurs that, by their very nature are difficult to manage because they're entrepreneurs. So you got to be willing to ask yourself some hard questions. Is that a thing? I was thinking about you, like you're able to connect with a lot of people. I've known you for a while. So you've definitely been able to create that. Is that something you help people move through? Because it's a transition. There's no two ways around that,
Mm-hmm.
right?
We do, and you have to. And I think it's because many of us have been on both sides of
Yeah.
that equation. And when I say us, our leadership team, some of the folks in our agencies have been on the other side of that equation. So it gives us a little different level of empathy, I think, to have been a part of an agency that sold to a big group and to understand what that looked like and the way that it was talked about, the way that we were told about it, the way that it ended up happening, making sure that is a story stays the same. It's really challenging as leaders of an organization, but I think it's super important to be consistent in that. And that's why I think we try to be really specific up front to say, here's who we are. This is exactly who we are. This is what you're going to get. And it is okay if you don't want to do that. It is totally okay. Like that, we will wish you the best and find you a better place. But if you're on board with that, then it's high fives and let's go move forward and let's sprint to a better place. But we do have to help people, right? Because it's interesting. The dynamic is always, and regardless of what an agency decides to do, many times the thing that they say, and you guys can confirm this better than me, is we want a strategic partner, we want help, but we also want to be left alone.
Yep.
Leave us
Autonomy.
alone.
Want
Let us
autonomy.
do our
Yes.
thing. Let us be autonomous. Let us be entrepreneurs like we've always been. And most people say, yeah, we want you to keep doing what you've been doing from our side of the table. But the reality is when you join, usually the day after someone joins the team, the phone calls that we begin to get are things like, we need access to all the markets. We need investment in producers. We need some help with technology. We need this. There's a list of things. All of those are valid requests. Those are all things they actually need. But if you think about it, that dynamic is also not being left alone.
Mm-mm.
Right? That's not an island of autonomy. That is now
No.
part of something that brings you things. And so those two don't match up. And I think we do a really good job of saying to people, hey, we're going to work through that realization with you. We recognize what that's like. We understand the dynamic for you, especially someone who's had a complete control over that for 40 or 50 years. We recognize that, and we don't believe that we have to push that in any certain way, because we have seen people that join when they hear the story and they hear from us and they hear the heart of our leadership and they meet the people that they're going to be working with and the rest of the team. They start to say, hey, you know what? I actually really want to be a part of the team. I don't want to be by myself. And I think when you let leaders come to that realization on their own, it's just such a much better process.
I also think when you have a group of people who is, as you said, has been in your shoes before, it's a lot less intimidating to say, I do want to be autonomous, but here's the things I need help with. And then, get to that same place. Like, hey, if I was talking to you, Karl, like, I've gone through this before.
Yeah.
I completely understand where you're coming from. And I think that honesty really goes a long way. It's not so much as selling off a spreadsheet as it is just like being a human and being honest and reflecting
Lindsay,
on yourself.
the key piece to all of that is that I tell groups this, any teams that I've been a part of leading over the years, I always remind them, the way that we are consistent throughout is by being ourselves. The inconsistencies, the hardness of being consistent is difficult when you are trying to be something that you are not. And if you can personally be who you are and you're good with that, and you're really there's and the challenge there too is a lot of people haven't spent the time in reflection to understand who they are first, right? So you got to get to that point first. So if somebody's not there, we got to help them to that point. And then if we get a group of people who are all being themselves, their genuine selves, there'll still be challenges. We'll still ask hard questions. There'll still be bumps in the road. But the reality is the underlying foundation is going to be the same and consistent because it's the truth. It's just the truth. We don't deviate from that underlying foundation because that's not who we are.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So, Karl, before we get on this podcast, I could see you light up when you talked about leading sales teams and creating training. And you can always tell, like, someone leans forward, they get excited, like you are clearly passionate about this. So tell me, have you had a huge win? Have you had someone come under your program? You've been able to mentor them, and like, I'd love to hear, what does that look like? You don't have to use names. Like, I'm just saying, we're talking about a little bit of apprehension of moving from I'm my own agency. I've decided to sell. I've joined someone like High Street, and what that could look like from a apprehension standpoint. But there are several stories where it is like lighting someone on fire and putting them, rocket fuel onto someone that has been amazing. So I'd love to hear, what does that look like?
We have a number of those stories. The exciting thing for me is that where we are in our foundation of building this team is that those stories are about to really explode in 25 and 26. We kind of have our arms around this new team of people that are all together. We're bringing them together so that these 1 and 2, 3 people sales teams within an agency that now joins our team is now surrounded by hundreds of salespeople.
Yeah.
And so that network, that national network, the sharing of expertise, the ability to sell, and if you were a commercial agency and you didn't have employee benefits, the opportunity now to partner with employee benefits agencies on our team and bring an additional revenue stream that wasn't even on the radar. I mean, it's one thing to have to grow your book 10% as a producer organically and continue to grow the pipeline that exists within your line of business. You add a whole new line of business to it, and now that percentage can change significantly. And so we have certainly had producers who have benefited from working across our network, whether it's across lines of business or it's just meeting someone on the other side of the country who has expertise and a different perspective and learning from them. We launched our first ever sales contest a year ago, and we took that group, we took our top 40 producers across the country, and we took them on a trip. We celebrated them, and I think that we had almost double the participants in the second year trip contest.
Yeah.
Right. So when you think about the energy that's out there, there's momentum growing for our team. But when you see people get together, like 2 years ago, we brought some groups together. So people from the Carolinas met with people from the Pacific Northwest. And those producer connections have for 2 years now they talk to each other regularly. They share business. I may not be able to tangibly put a number to that. I know there's great benefit in that. I know there is. And so I think that's some real wins for us. And we've had a lot of success with our training that we've been doing. And, I think we've done a really good job. I think we can be great though, and we're not there yet. So, but the training that we've done, we do, I've done feedback calls with I want to talk to the cohorts as they go through training, but I also want to talk to them 6 months later, 12 months later. How's it going? Where are you at? And what we hear from them is, man, we haven't had a chance to do something like that before. It's been super beneficial. We're in a different place now because we were a part of that training program. And that's what I want our team to continue to try to strive for.
Yeah, I love it. And I've seen some of those pictures, Carl. That's why I asked you, because I mean, you can feel the energy in those pictures, and you can see that it's doubled in size. So it's awesome. So I'm going to close with a question that I think is really important, because we're sitting on this call with Lindsay, and I think there's a lot of people asking themselves, we've had a difficult few years. It's either been opportunity for people or it's been difficult. And people are thinking like maybe the market's going to soften now that, things are happening in California. I'm not 100% sure. But from your perspective, if you were someone like Lindsay, are you optimistic about the industry? Are you what is your thought process on where this independent agency system is going, and people like Lindsay who have decided this is the place she wants to be? What would you say to them?
I'm super optimistic about
Yeah,
it. I
me
mean,
too.
there's such a history of success and growth and stability, quite honestly, with what we do for a living. It's survived many different economic downturns, much worse than anything we've been through recently. I think the mechanism and the theory is long lasting. So I'm super optimistic about it. I think there's an incredible opportunity. And the neat thing about our industry is we can find a spot for a really talented person in a lot of different places. It doesn't have to be sales or service. I mean, I've got someone in our family, my son's girlfriend, who's an incredible actuary, statistician, doing that in college. There could be a place for her, right? Like there's just all
Heck
this
yeah.
opportunity for people. And I'm okay that it's a little bit under the radar, because
Yeah.
I'm okay just chasing some really talented people.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I think that it's the best kept secret.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think in this time when everyone's talking not so positively about insurance, there's still some people in this industry. There's a lot of people in this industry that think it's the best kept secret and one of the best places to make a career. And I somehow knew you were going to join me in that thought process. But
well, and I think
anyway, if someone wants to reach out, go ahead.
We have an obligation, right? Like we have an obligation in the face of some of the challenging narratives that are out there about what we do, to make sure that we stand up and tell people, hey, wait a minute, let's have a conversation about that. Let me help you understand what you're saying and what you're hearing, and let me talk to you about the actual background there. And if we shy away from that, then we can't complain about the fact that we get a bad rap.
Amen. Amen. I mean, I love this industry. And by the way, if your son's girlfriend loves numbers, I know a place where she could have an internship, just in case you're wondering,
I will let her know. I will definitely let her know for sure.
Yeah. Anyway, well, thank you for coming and talking to us. I look forward to seeing you very, very soon. I'm going to be in North Carolina. I hope we're going to cross paths. That would be amazing. Mm-hmm. And I appreciate you coming on our podcast and sharing. If anyone wants to reach out to you and learn more, or talk to you about your experience, your theory on sales, all that good stuff, how can they reach you?
If you go look online, I'm not hard to find. And so I'll let you do a little homework on it. But if you look me up online and reach out to connect on any of those topics, you'll find that I'm very receptive to that.
Yeah, excellent.
Thanks
for being our guest, Carl.
Yeah, thank you. What a pleasure. Thanks, Carey. Thanks, Lindsay.